Well, we want to talk about why you're so messed up, why any of us are so messed up. And talking with a doctor, the conversation seems to go much better than talking to the average person because they are always so in tune with who is your mother and father. And so much of our life is spent on healthcare. So much of our money, most bankruptcies are because of healthcare, disease, and sickness. So it's no wonder that the principle of you are going to have your mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers' diseases is about 98.9% true. That you do come from your parents, and it's no wonder you look like them, and you weren't born looking like me, but you were born looking like your parents. So God makes it so obvious for us to see the truth, and then we want to argue about it. You know, boys will marry the mothers, daughters will marry their fathers. The likelihood that you will act like your father and the likelihood that you act like your mother. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So we don't have to go with the exceptions, which are rare, 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 rare. Or the confirmation bias denial. "Oh, I'm never going to be like her. You never say never, they tell you. You will be. And if you don't recognize that, then you are fighting against the physics of anthropological gravity, the way God designed things to be, every seed of its kind bearing its kind. Did you know that's in Bereshit in Genesis? Every seed of its seed brings forth, an apple doesn't give birth to a pear. And it's not just about the shape. That's why you're as big as you are. It's just in your genetics. Your mother was big, your grandmother's big, and you are. And the other one, your daddy was skinny and you're skinny. Your dad went bald. I got one friend of mine, he lost his beautiful hair. All right. You're gonna get bald. You're gonna become like your dad or your grandpa. My younger brother has my grandfather's head. He's the only one in the family that looks like grandpa. And so you every seed of its kind bearing its seed. People, science, nature, physics. Get over it. Stop believing in trans psychology. You wake up tomorrow and decide you don't want to be a pear, but you were born an apple. You're a fool. You're an idiot. You're delusional. You're psychotic. You're mental. Or you're just demonically possessed. All of the above. From the drugs you've used and from your bitterness and hatred that you want the truth to be the lie you want to believe. And so, no bigger problem exists in our environment than the one between our ears, our own self deception. And it's a story, not so much we're told, as much as a story we tell ourselves and the one we believe. Jesus said famously, well, they asked him, why was this man born this way? Did he sin or his father sin? And why would that question have been posed? Well, they had knowledge. Remember, a great deal more knowledge than we have today. Knowledge is constantly going away. And language is the conveyor belt of information. Lose your language, you lose your information, lose your culture, you lose your wisdom. And so there you have it. Your tribe, your family, your history that should be passed down. And sometimes your parents don't. They do teach you how to be a fool, but they never taught you how to be wise. They taught you how to be a drunk. They never taught you how to be sober. They taught you how to lust. They never taught you how to love. They taught you how to make money, but they didn't teach you how to live. They taught you how to be greedy, but they didn't tell you how to be happy. And they didn't model the example. When I say tell, I don't mean by sitting down academically with elocution, just mouthing off words. They were supposed to demonstrate that. They were supposed to model it. They were supposed to show you by example. And they didn't. So most of your problems was your parents didn't tell you. Well, son, you got to watch this because this runs in our family. You got to watch this because, grandpa, we got to watch. And the parents aren't looking for those signs in their children. They see, but they deny. So you don't have to recognize. It's- Are there onset conditions? Yes. But by and large, most conditions are not so much onset as much as they are recessed and activated. They're stress levels, things that are in your blood, in your line, in your genetics, epigenetically, that are waiting for the key to turn on. And stressors usually ignite them. Things that can happen that will turn on that key. They're recessive genes, all kinds of things. Well, our temper. Some of us know how what a bad temper we have, and the right activation can turn it on. So you monitor it. And some of you know about their weakness to drugs or lust, and you don't want to go to the beach and see half naked people because that might activate it. You should do what Paul told Timothy: run from it, flee youthful lust. Wouldn't you run from a grizzly bear? Well, some tell you not to, but you know what I mean. Wouldn't you run from danger? You run into a fire, you run from it. If you're equipped to put it out, and that's your training, that's different. That's why very few are firemen. Most are fire starters or fire escapees, but only the men who are trained how to fight it run towards it. So you have to be either a man of war with a task and purpose, or a man of wisdom to know better than go to the edge of the cliff. So there are things that you should understand, like the doctors tell you. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about your mother. Psychiatrist, psychologist, the same thing. You think you have all these issues, but tell me about your mother. Tell me about your father. Tell me about your crazy aunt. Tell me about your criminal uncle. Tell me about your family. I want to see what the circle closest to you before I start looking in the peripheral about what college you went to and who your friends were. And then when you tell me about your family history, now tell me about your history. What do you eat? I'm going to see if you are going to be contributing to the sins of your fathers, or are you doing things that are going to augment it and eliminate it, control it and manage it, or prevent it? So tell me about you. Oh, no, you better stop that because this runs in your family. Well, don't do that because you have a propensity, a tendency to this. You have a capacity for this. It's in your history. And that could be mental or physiological history, ancestral history. So every seed of its kind bearing its kind. So understand who your parents are. Look at who your mother was. You come from her body. Diseases are passed on. How she ate, the stress that she went through while she was carrying you, that gets transferred through the placenta into you. Vibrations, frequency, all of that. And you don't even realize it. And it's recessive and it will come up. Maybe once you become a mother, once you become a father, it will come up. Once you get a job, it'll come up once you hit the age 28 to 30, right? Because all of these little different things have a different combination when they turn on. Menopause has a different time when it turns on. Change of life has a different time when it turns on. There are different keys and combinations and doors that automatically open up, rather you do nothing to open them up because of the biological doors and clocks and times that God had put in motion. There are seasons of your body, like there are seasons in our ecology: summer, winter, spring, fall. And then some seasons that are different than that: warm ages and ice ages, all kinds of different seasons of your life. I wrote a song about it. So you have to understand that. Know your family. Don't deny it. Augment it. Don't deny it. It's glaring at you, staring at you in your face, and you still ignore it. And you're not doing anything to survive the worst part of your ancestral heritage. There are other things. You don't mind benefiting from the money that grandpa has. You don't mind that part. You understand the benefits, but you don't understand any of the risk. One guy inherited hundreds of thousands of dollars from his father. That was the benefit. The risk was he got the worst mind from his father, and he gambled it away. His father loved gambling. He drank it away. He went into rebellion with lust. Within a year, a couple $100,000 was gone. Young guy, go figure. Didn't model his father. Father didn't train him right. He's got the worst. He inherited. So he not only did he inherit the money, he also inherited the worst part of his father. You're giving your children two things: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hopefully, you train them about the ugly, how to avoid the ugly in you, and you train them how to maximize the good in you and more, and to exceed, but not to exceed your ugliness, to lessen that part and exceed the goodness. Repeat what's good and then double down on it. I made $10 million. No, you go make 20 million. Well, that was Trump's idea, his father. He wanted to take the wealth further. Sometimes you give your son the baton and he goes further when it comes to business and money and that kind of stuff. But more often than not, he goes further with your sin. You only divorced once. He's going to divorce 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. You only slept with 2 women. He's going to sleep with 20. You only smoked cigarettes and maybe smoked marijuana once or twice. He's going to live off of marijuana and go deeper into it, in a heavier version of it, and then he's going to go into deeper drugs. So you're passing them a legacy where they're going to double down on wickedness because you didn't train them how to eat. You didn't train them how to think. And they weren't interested in reversing. They love to complain and point their finger at you, but they're not willing to correct what they're blaming you for. Think about that. Oh, it's because of what you did when I was this age. What you did. Okay. But you got to keep living. So how are you going to correct that? Too late for me to correct it because, like you said, I've already did that to you. I've already didn't teach you. It already was a bad example. Okay. That doesn't give you a death sentence, but it gives you a responsibility. You got to, well, again, son, daughter, you're going to have to correct that. Obviously, too late for me to correct it in you, but it's not too late for you. So why don't you correct some of that? Where I failed, you succeed. Where I didn't teach you, you learn it. So that's the responsibility. Because even Adam, I used to say he blamed God, but indirectly, Adam blamed his father. Remember, God was his father, literally. He was not born from the sperm of a man. Every man after that was, except Yeshua. So think about that. Well, Dad, it's that woman you gave me. See, even Adam had enough sense to kind of somehow or another connect it to his dad. Yes, son, it was that woman I gave you, but I didn't give you that woman for the purpose of you letting her tell you what to do and listen to that devil at the tree. I gave you that woman for you to be a reminder and her covering of what I've taught you, that now you will teach her. And you knew better. So don't blame the fact that you have friends. Your friends didn't make you do it. She didn't hold you hostage. You could have said, no, Eve, Hava, no. Father said, no, we don't do that. But Adam, no but about it. Who's that talking to you at that tree? Get away from there. Get away from my wife. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. See, Joshua spoke up for his wife and his children. They didn't speak up for him. He spoke up for them. That's his role. Hey, get out of here. As for me and my wife and kids, we're going to serve the Lord. But you let the women lead your house. You let the children run your house. You let the government run your house. You let the people at your office run your house. You let the sports teams run your house. You let the school teachers run your house. You let the celebrities run your house. But you don't let God run you, so God can't run your house. So don't complain about what's happening in your home. You did it. And when you point to the Father, he already told us what to do. And he gave us a responsibility. But you do come from your Father, do you not? You do come from the Father. Resist the devil, he will flee from you. So you see what problems you have. You see the seed that bears its kind. You see the sicknesses. You know, all of my, I see, yeah, COVID weakened my mitochondria. And I see that most of my conditions are conditions that it didn't give me, but conditions that it woke up within my body from my family heritage. And I've always been healthy. Anyone who's seen old pictures of me knows that. I've always been fit. But after getting COVID, I slid, it weakened my defense, my natural defenses, and it opened up recessive genes of problems that were my mother's physical ailments that I have never suffered from, even though it was in my family, because I was already doing those things since a teenager that contributed to go against the things that were natural in my bloodline. So doctors would often say, well, you don't have any of the problems that are normal in your race. Well, you don't have any of the problems that are normal in your family line. Well, I was already doing all of those things since I was a teenager. And then I see when this diabolical virus entered our world, I remember how many of us began to suffer. So many of us, young and old, begin to have conditions. Some people that were young were having conditions that you're not supposed to have until you're 60 or 80 years old. Some of us who have been healthy are now finding conditions that we had already had control. None, it looks like we can't beat them back because our immune system was what? Weakened artificially. And it gave the enemy a chance to break into our health. And we're seeing conditions that were under arrest. The prison doors have been opened and the escapees are out. And now we find so many of us, regardless of our age, our ethnicity, or our health profile, suffering things unnaturally. So there are exceptions to the rule, but there would be also an understandable reason why. Now, notwithstanding something of that nature, right? A COVID or something traumatic that causes something to happen, what's the excuse for most of us? What is the excuse for the rest of us? What's the excuse? You're eating wrong. You're thinking wrong. You're breathing wrong. You're living wrong. You're chasing the wrong things. So you're feeding all of that bad spiritual gut bacteria that's destroying and weakening the cells. And you're giving yourself the wrong thing to fuel the cell. So all of the nastiness of the real environment, because there's byproducts in our body, and we are designed to get rid of it. The generation, who did sin? Well, yes, your mom and dad did. But in some cases, it's just the environment. In some cases, it's a direct reason that God wants to show forth his glory. And in rare cases, it has nothing to do with your mother or father. It's just the Lord making an executive decision to make a point. But those are rare moments. By and large, for the average of us, we're not learning the lessons. And we've got to stop blaming people. We've got to look in the mirror and take responsibility, regardless of the excuse or the explanation that should not be used as an excuse. Don't get bitter, get better. And what they did to you and what society has done and the bad food they put in the public school system and the horrible textbooks they gave you, all of those things, the things that you cannot control. Else you're going to find yourself down a rabbit hole. And many of you who are parents, you'll be constantly doing the same thing you've done over and over again, ruining your children. It doesn't work. It never has worked. And that's why your children are ruined. But you expect them to change, but you don't even change. What's the expectation? Do something differently. And that takes the will to break what we call the generational curses. Well, something has to be done to break a generational curse. And it's not just singing a song and saying a prayer. There is a great effect psychosomatically, spiritually, that we have to put in effect and hopefully surround ourselves with less of the environment that works against ourselves. Sometimes you've got to remove yourself from an environment. But most of you won't do that because dishonestly, you are feeding the parasite. I've met many people who love being around wickedness to beat their chests about how strong they are. But that doesn't help you. You've got to resist wickedness. And then what you want to do is get yourself in a healthier environment, which is why you go up to the mountains. You want to breathe cleaner air. That's why you put trees and plants. You want to breathe cleaner air. But you can't do that unless you make a physical decision. I had a friend who really was so sick of this wicked place, California. He's had it. And so sick of it. And he got up and got out and hasn't looked back since. And yes, it's not sunny all year round where he's at. And he doesn't have all of the sinful, lustful amenities that so many of you love about California. And it wasn't because he needed to be in a colder place, not as crowded, not as many sinful options. No, he was thinking about himself as his soul. He was like, yes, it's not as many fun things, but how many fun things do you need to do anyway? Why do you have to have so much? Just get one hobby and let that be what satisfies you. Why do you need so much? Can't you just paint? Can't you just write? Can't you just meditate? Why do you need so much? Because it's called dopamine stimulation. Is actually scientific why. And the receptors, the neuron receptors, now need more because you've so overstimulated them that now they cannot regulate it. Now it's going to take more and more and more and more and more. And that's where drug addiction comes into play. And lust and pornography, those things, right? Now your receptors, it takes so much more because you've destroyed the neuron connectors. Dopamine, it has a positive effect, but it also has a negative effect. You're on the negative side of it. It's not money, it's the love of money that's the problem. It's not food, it's the gorging of the food that's the problem. And people that are addicts, it's the same thing with food. Once you get, what does they say? It starts off, first you like it, then you want it, and then you need it. You don't want anything in your life that way except God. Not a woman, not a man, not a dog, not a piece of food, not a drink, not a wave on the ocean, not a snowboard on a mountain. No, no, no. You don't want anything like that but God. It's okay to like some of those other things. Occasionally, it's okay to want some of those other things. It's never okay to need them. The Lord is the sustenance. He's the true mitochondria of the human that keeps things in balance. If you're feeding it the right spiritual energy and not ultra processed spiritual religion, loud music, flashing lights, strobe lights, revving yourself up emotionally, but there's no real root and substance to your faith. A couple of scriptures here, a couple of crosses there, a couple of kippas here. Calm down. You're just as sick as the ones who are not eating any spiritual food because you've got the processed stuff that's destroying you spiritually. And then what happens? It gets into your ancestral line, and there we go. Why are they this way? Is it because their mother and father sinned? Well, it's in their seed. And what did the Lord say about what righteousness does for future generations and what wickedness does? Tell them, Guy.
In the Ten Commandments, the Lord said very clearly, after he said, I am Adonai your God, who brought you out from Egypt, from the house of slavery, you shall have no other gods before me. Make no statue, make no image in the shape of anything in the heavens above, the earth beneath, and the waters below the earth. You shall not worship them nor serve them, for I, Adonai your God, am a jealous God, allowing the sin of the father to afflict the children to the third and fourth generations for those who hate me, yet give grace to 1,000 generations for those who love me and keep my commandments.
Praise Papa. So if you love your children and if you want to protect their future, it won't have anything to do with who's in the White House. It won't have anything to do with who's in the Knesset. It won't have anything to do with who's in the United Nations. It won't have anything to do with who's your governor, who's your mayor. But it will have everything to do with who is your God and your obedience to his Torah, to his instructions, your faithfulness and love to him, and how you teach your children. That's how you protect their future. It's not in a hedge fund. It's not in a stock. It's not in silver and gold. It's not in Bitcoin. It's not in AI. It's not in future markets and options. You're choosing the wrong thing to sustain your life and to give you life because you're living off of ultra processed philosophy and ideology when you could just choose the Lord. Live and be happy. Amen.